A happy Easter holiday to you all, and thank you once again for joining me on another episode of Dinner Guide. I'm your host, Chef Andy, bringing a nice, beautiful twist to some of the dishes that we're going to be doing this week, which is basically going to be a theme on eggs. And I'm going to be showing you a very, very simple technique of getting rid of those hard-boiled eggs, especially on this particular weekend of Easter. Some of you may actually have some hard-boiled eggs remaining in your refrigerator. And if you do have some, then definitely this is the show for you. Now we're going to start off by introducing the ingredients before us, and then I'll get to the next process of making this very simple creamy egg curry. But before we begin, I'll introduce the ingredients before us, which is from the very front about 2 tablespoons of frozen peas, 1 tablespoon of curry paste. You're also going to require about 6 to 7 pieces of cherry tomato or a small handful, a tablespoon of some tomato paste, and a tablespoon of some mango chutney, a small teaspoon of some chili flakes, just to give your dish a bit of a heat and a bit of a kick. You're also going to require about 4 cloves of garlic, about a teaspoon of salt, and about 4 button mushrooms cut into quarters. You'll require as well 2 tablespoons of some finely chopped spring onion and 1 ginger root that's already washed and peeled. You're also going to require a half a cup of some red and yellow capsicums that are already cut into cubes, about 1 inch in size. You're also going to require 2 hard-boiled eggs, of course already cooled off, 2 pieces of courgette, about medium size, chopped. You should be about a quarter of a cup to half a cup. You're also going to require some leeks on the side there, a bit of some fresh coriander that we're going to be using in the dish as well. And you'll also need to reserve at least about a cupful of some coconut cream. And if you don't have that, you can also work with coconut milk. And last but not least, some pepper to crush and some vegetable oil to cook with. But before we get to that very simple process of making this simple dish, I will allow you to unwind, and we'll catch you after a very, very short break. Welcome back, viewers. If you're just catching up, we're about to start a very, very simple process of making an egg curry. I will begin by heating up a pot on the side, or a heavy base pan if you do have one. Now, something also to mention about eggs, is a lot of twists to making eggs. Some of you may only be able to be familiar with some of the options you use for breakfast. But for this recipe, I'm going to be using a very, very different technique, one that will incorporate a beautiful, healthy dish that is high in, of course, calorie. But for some of you who are very much strict on your diet, or not big fans of using eggs, you can alternatively also use the same particular recipe just for a very simple vegetable curry. So to begin the process, we're going to begin by preparing some of our aromatics. So I'm going to start off by mincing a small knob of ginger, and I'll just grate it very, very simply using a grater. You can also alternatively just chop it very, very finely. And to that, we will proceed to add that to our pan. We will also proceed to chop up some garlic. Now I'm going to be chopping them very, very coarsely for the reasons that I do want it to be very visible to the eye once you plate your dish. And we'll proceed to add those to the pan. Now I'm going to proceed to add my oil a little later than the usual. This is basically just to get a nice beautiful aroma of the ingredients before we add the oil. And this also allows for you to get that beautiful aroma and really get that ginger and garlic aroma in your pot. Now we're going to proceed to begin by frying those very, very quickly on your pan. Now very, very simply, we are going to now begin to add some of the other ingredients. Remember, one particular beautiful step of starting a curry is by beginning by making a beautiful base for your sauce. So to that, we're going to be incorporating our tomato paste, our curry paste, our chili flakes, and our spring onions. So I'm going to add my spring onions first. And now we're going to proceed to saute those very, very lightly. Nice beautiful color from the garlic there. Now the heat should actually be at medium at this stage, just to make sure that you don't overcook your onions and of course get a little bit of color or too much color on them. And next up, I'm going to add my curry paste and my tomato paste. Proceed again to mix your ingredients through. And now at this stage, we're definitely going to need to cool off that pan a little bit. So to that, I'll proceed to add my coconut cream. And now for some of you who may actually be wondering what kind of a curry base this is, it's a very, very light one, as I said. And of course, for some of you who may be looking at going the Indian style by adding a bit of dried spices and herbs, you're very much welcome to do so for this recipe. So I'm just going to quickly just give that a mix, allowing for the curry paste and the curry paste and the tomato paste to just mix very, very gently with the coconut milk. So at this stage, you may actually want to be very vigilant on not boiling your mixture too quickly, just to allow it to really begin to blend in the flavors and to really start getting that beautiful aroma through. All right, now while that continues, we're going to proceed to add our vegetables. And as I mentioned, I'm using some very, very soft vegetables for this recipe. So remember that this particular ingredients you may actually want to add as soon as you get that nice, beautiful balance of texture in your curry sauce. So I'm going to start off by adding my yellow peppers and my red peppers. I'll also proceed to add my chili flakes. Proceed to mix that through once more, of course making sure to proceed to do so at low temperature. All right, now we will proceed as well to dice up our courgette. So I'm going to proceed by slicing that lengthways into 4 and probably reserve just the other piece. And now this you're going to proceed to cube into 1-inch cubes. And we're going to proceed to add that to our pot. Once more, give it a nice thorough mix. Of course, always making sure that your sauce is actually quite enough and should be able to actually cover your ingredients right through to the top. We're going to proceed to add our mushrooms as well. And of course, one particular tip I could share with you, very important to always cook a curry of this nature very, very gently. Remember, you will actually go through a few instances where you may actually have your coconut reducing very, very quickly. One particular tip of sharing that I could share with you is cooking your curry sauce or cooking your coconut really, really slow allows for you to allow for the flavors to blend in, of course, without having to reduce your sauce completely. Simple as that. And while that continues to simmer very gently, we've also got some hard-boiled eggs here, and as I mentioned, these are particularly ones that you would have left over in your own refrigerator, but because we are basically doing this fresh, these were pretty much boiled a little earlier in the show. And I'm just going to proceed to switch those for ones that we have done as well that are already peeled. So very, very simply, we're going to proceed to add those whole into the mixture. And of course, proceed to mix through. And this basically will allow for your eggs to just heat up with the mixture, get a bit of that center nice and creamy as well. And it will of course give your egg a bit of color. Right, and just to finish this very simple process off, I'm going to proceed to add my frozen peas. Proceed to mix that once more. And we're going to allow that to simmer for anywhere between 6 to 7 minutes, just to allow for our vegetables to soften up very gently and allow for the egg to heat through. But before we proceed, I'm going to take a very short break, allowing me to clear my station of any debris, and we will catch you after a very short break. Please don't touch that dial. Welcome back, viewers. If you're just catching up with the show, we've just been working on a very simple and exquisite egg curry. Now this has been simmering now for about 4 to 6 minutes. I'm just going to allow for another 2 to 3 minutes for it to continue simmering. But while we do so, I will also show you a nice simple technique of finishing off your garnish, or rather doing a very simple garnish. So I'm going to begin by heating up a pan on the other end with some oil. Now this, I'm basically just going to fry up my leeks. So we're going to start off by chopping these up. So I'm going to begin by cutting my stock into half. So it should be about a finger's length. And to that, we'll proceed to julienne that very thinly. So proceed to slice that as thin as you possibly can, and proceed to do the same for the other half. Now this particular technique of finishing off your dish just brings a nice beautiful difference in texture. So I particularly like to have my curry with some nice beautiful crispy onions. So I'm just going to add those into a pot with some oil, and we're just going to allow those to fry up until they're nice and crispy. So that should give you about 4 to 5 minutes just to proceed to finish off your curry. I'm just going to give that a mix once more. By this time, your curry sauce will actually begin to start thickening. Remember, it is towards the last and final stage, and I'm still cooking that at very medium to low heat. But to finish that off, just to give it a nice beautiful spark of color, I'm also going to chop in there some fresh coriander. So I'm just going to chop that very finely. So that should give you about 1.5 tablespoons to 2 tablespoons of some coriander. And we're just going to proceed to add that to the curry sauce. Proceed to give that another mix. And you should actually be able to see a nice beautiful burst of some green color in your mixture. Now we're proceeding now to add our cherry tomatoes. So these I'm just going to add a few of them whole. So I'm adding about 4 to 5 pieces. And then of course, very important to always remember to season your dish. So to that I'm adding about 3/4 teaspoon of salt. And of course crush in some black peppercorns. And now proceed to lower your temperature to completely low. And proceed to mix that very gently. And allow that just to simmer to doneness. And while we continue as well, we'll proceed to remove our leeks from the side here. So these are now beautifully colored. Very important to have some kitchen paper or some kitchen towel in your house. Remember, this always allows for you to drain off excess oil from any fried food items. And now we're just going to proceed to move our leeks onto the kitchen towel, allowing for any excess oil to drain from them. And it actually brings a nice beautiful aroma as well to the room. You should actually be able to get a nice beautiful cooked leek aroma coming through. And as you can see, a nice beautiful speck of dark color there, a bit of speck of brown and green. So this particularly also elevates the look of your dish, also brings about a nice beautiful texture balance, and of course also brings up a nice beautiful look for the last and final finish of the dish. So I'm going to reserve those on the side for plating and bring your attention back to our pot here with the curry. Now this is now ready to plate, so I'm going to proceed to turn down the heat completely and grab a plate of choice. So this you can alternatively serve on a very, very simple bowl or a very, very small plate. As I mentioned as well, it's a very, very simple recipe. You can also be able to serve this to any particular children that are below the age of 6. It's a very good alternative to supplementing your protein diet, especially if you're also cutting away from eating a lot of red meat. Very, very good with a beautiful balance of vitamins and a nice, beautiful kick of calorie as well. So I'm just going to grab a ladle at the back, and we're going to proceed to move our dish onto the plate. So I'm just going to begin by spooning out some of that mixture of egg and vegetable. And of course, very, very simple tip of serving. Always begin by serving the harder bits and pieces of your dish. And of course, proceed to pour out the sauce a little after that. This, of course, always allows for you to make sure that you don't have too much sauce on your plate and very, very little vegetables. So just proceed to do the same. Of course, holding your spoon along the sides of your pan allows for you to drain off that excess amount of sauce. And just proceed to plate that around. And last but not least, proceed to just drizzle a bit of that sauce right over your dish. Nice, beautiful aroma coming through. And for the last and final part of the dish, of course, we're going to proceed to just crumble those beautiful pieces of fried leek over the parchment paper or your kitchen towel, and just very simply proceed to place those right over the top of your dish. Simple as that, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, just to complement the dish, a nice beautiful serving of some mango chutney brings a nice beautiful sweetness and acidity to the dish, allowing you to get a nice beautiful balance right through the meal. So thank you once again for tuning in today. I do hope you've had some fun watching the show and tuning into this very simple technique of using up some hard-boiled eggs. And for those of you who may be looking at trying this dish, as I mentioned, be very, very particular in choosing the best quality coconut milk out there. Also as well, for those of you who may not be able to find some curry paste, there are recipes out there that you can be able to make your curry paste in advance and basically just spoon that from a container from your refrigerator. Now, something else to mention as well, this particular dish may not be a favorite for those of you with egg allergy. So if you do have some egg allergy, or diners that do have allergies to eggs or protein of this particular nature, be sure to be able to make the same amount of dish, but probably just incorporate your eggs a little later, and this should actually be a very good serving for two. So thank you once again for tuning in today. I will also welcome your comments and any queries pertaining this particular dish and this particular show. You can write back to us through our Facebook page, that's BrandPlus TV. And if you're looking at also some new different options that you may actually want to bring up to some tips that you may want to touch up on your cooking with, you can also check out our YouTube page, that's BrandPlus TV. Plenty for you to catch up on that particular platform. But for now, I'm going to bid you farewell, wishing you a lovely, beautiful end of your particular Easter holiday. And for those of you who are still on your holidays, particularly for those of you who are students, do enjoy your holidays. And until the next episode, God bless and see you soon.